Thank you, Congressman. My name is Tim O'Loughlin. Actually, I'm more than Oakdale Irrigation District. I also represent the San Joaquin River Group Authority. I deal extensively with San Joaquin River issues in front of all of the federal and state regulatory agencies. I found it interesting. I'm going to hold up something, and hopefully you can see it on the PowerPoint behind me. This is New Maloney's, and I'm going to explain why New Maloney's is important to the west side in just a minute. This is New Maloney's pre-OCAP biological opinion end-of-month storage. And these are in 500,000 acre-foot increments. And what you can tell on the graph is that New Maloney's has a pretty good carryover storage from year to year under prior operations. This is New Maloney's reservoir with the OCAP biological opinion in place. And if you notice on the graph, it goes bust. New Maloney's has 2.5 million acre feet of storage. With the OCAP biological opinion, it will go dry 15 times out of an 80-year cycle. What does this mean to the west side and others? Fortunately, I represent the Friant folks and the exchange contractors as part of the San Joaquin River Group Authority. And what that means is that when New Maloney's goes dry, there will be additional calls coming from Friant to meet the New Maloney CDP obligations, and there might be additional calls from San Luis to also meet those obligations. So with the OCAP focused on New Maloney's, that is the impact that can circle back around and impact other districts and entities within the San Joaquin River Basin. Secondly, keep it short. National Academy of Science is starting, yes. They are meeting for 5 days in Davis at the end of this month. It's somewhat disconcerting to me, though, as a participant in this process, that out of the 5 days of meetings, they've only scheduled 3 hours to hear from outside experts that are non-regulatory, either U.S. Fish and Wildlife or National Marine Fisheries. It's somewhat disconcerting because I thought that when we saw the science from NOAA and U.S. Fish and Wildlife in regards to the biological opinions, that was the end-all to be-all, but I guess it's not. So we're scheduled for 3 hours out of 5 days of meetings. Reminds me of a Huck Finn story. The last one is we face ongoing problems coming up within the San Joaquin River Basin. There is going to be going forward a basin planning objectives in front of the State Water Resources Control Board. The regulatory agencies are looking to dramatically increase the amount of flow on the San Joaquin River. As more flow is made available, that means that upstream storage and other reservoirs on the San Joaquin River will become depleted. I do want to thank the Congressman Lester Snow and especially Ron Milligan for last year. Oakdale Irrigation District and South San Joaquin Irrigation did the first east to west transfer to San Luis Delta Mendota Water Authority. That would not have happened without their help and assistance. We're trying to do another transfer this year. As you heard, that probability is bleak, given the fact that there will be little or no capacity at the pumps. We're going forward with the environmental documentation and trying to make that happen. And then finally, the last thing is in regards to the OCAP biological opinion, to stress Mr. Birmingham's point, given this year, carryover storages in the east side trips are very low. Given the 4-to-1 pumping restrictions that are going to occur in the San Joaquin River Basin and at the pumps this year, I can tell you that you will not see, without a major monsoon, flows above 6,000 CFS at Vernalis. And if flows of 6,000 CFS at Vernalis are not met, pumping restrictions will remain at 1,500 CFS at both the CVP and SWP exports. And my expectation, based on what we see in the upper watershed, in the snowpack, and in the reservoirs, is that the likelihood of that occurring is, according to my hydrologist, is about 80%. I have no comments. Thank you.
The last of our water agency experts is going to be Jim Beck from the Kern County Water Agency. He's the general manager of the Kern County Water Agency. Jim, thank you for being here.
Well, I want to start by saying thanks to Congressman Costa and Cardoza. They've been tirelessly fighting this battle for quite some time, and we work very closely with Congressman Costa, who represents a portion of my service area. And in addition to the great battles he's fought at the federal level on the Delta issues, he's also worked very closely on local projects to help alleviate a portion of the problems we deal with. Also, I know that most of the folks in the room are from the CBP service area. I'm one of your distant cousins from the south end of the valley, but from where I live and work, it looks a lot similar to what you guys are facing. My growers are fighting for their survival this year. 5% allocation on the state water project is just unimaginable. I've been at the water agency 25 years. I've lived in the valley that whole time, and it's the worst year I've ever seen. What my growers will be wrestling with is, what do you do when you're faced with 5%? And you start by what every grower in the valley does. You look at what you can do locally. So we'll be implementing as many local programs as we can, but there's a finite amount of water to move around in our portion of the valley. And for those of you that participates in programs with east side water being moved to the west side, that water often comes through Kern County as part of that. So we work with all the managers that you see in the room today and trying to maximize delivery opportunities for access to emergency supplies. We'll also be tapping our world-famous groundwater banking facilities, but we've recovered 1 million acre-feet of water from the banking projects that we've stored water in over the last 10 years. This year, we'll be losing about 35% of the recovery capacity because of declining groundwater levels, so they won't yield the amount of water that we had in the past. So then we go locally. We start like you guys. What do we do locally? Then you look north of the Delta, and again, the speakers today have all told you that the transfer opportunities are going to be very difficult. The water is going to be expensive. Our growers are facing the same issues that you do. If you can get water through the Delta, can you afford it to grow a crop? And then, so when we look at the things that you've seen today, the number one message that I give to the federal administration for survival this year is flexibility. I think Francis Graff tells the story. If you don't force the federal administration, the operators of the project, towards the maximum flexibility, you've made life very difficult for the survival of our way of life in the valley. Whether you're in Bakersfield, Fresno, Mendota, it's looking the same. We've got 30–40% unemployment, and we've got growers that will be out of business at the end of this year if something doesn't break loose. But my difficult job, and I'll wrap up with this, is I'm faced with growers like you in the room. I'm telling them this year, when they aren't getting enough water to grow a crop, when their very survival is at stake, that I need more money from them. I need more money to devote to projects that will provide some relief on the short term and the long term, like the Delta fix that Lester spoke about. And I need more money to litigate. We're all seeing that much of the decisions in water are being made in the courtroom this day. We've got a broken system, and that's where the biggest bang for your buck this year is going to be in the courtroom to get water. That's not the way we should do business in California or in the United States. And so we need to engage in a long-term battle to change that dynamic and help get back to what I saw when I came to the valley in the 80s. Projects were built, things were done. It's the way we do things in the valley. Thanks. And if you have questions, I know I'll be around.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here. We're going to try and go to the questions at this point. Now, we're going to ask our federal officials, we're going to be leaving at noon. We're going to ask that you stay an extra 15 minutes because we want to try and answer as many questions as possible. I'm going to ask that the questioners limit their ask to 30 seconds to a minute so that we can actually get to answers. So, who's got the first question?
I got too much water on my ranch. I came to give it to my farmer next to me. He's got 460 acres and he gets no water. You talk about making transfers. Have we looked at studying an elephant? With one time, just take 5 at a time. I could pump 4,000 acre feet into a creek and have Steve Bell take it out nearly 460 acres. But I can't get it through the system.
Who have you talked to, sir, about it?
I've been down at CCID and I've had the 2 water contractors have lunch at my house and tell me if I turn my wells over there, they pay me $500 an acre foot, and they put a pipe out to my place, and the Delta come out and sell it all down for $500. My point is, how can they make them off like that, and I can't even give the water to my neighbor? me, I've got oil that's being turned off for 2 years.
Where do you live, sir?
We've got seen 3.5 miles, I've got seen right by 533 CCIP district. And that's about the best district in the world. My point is, I can take a ride by helping my fellow farmers around me because I got so much water. When they plant sugar, the water comes up out of my ground and down my ditch, I've got to run my well so that I don't take my cheap CCIP water. So who do I talk to say, hey, I can help some farmers in my area?
Well, Mr. Costa and I authored legislation this year to facilitate transfers. And this is the first time that I've heard that you can't do it neighbor to neighbor within a county. So that's new information, and we'll take a look at that to make sure. Dee D'Adamo from my staff will contact you afterwards to figure out why you're having this problem. Okay, next question. Yes, sir.